Welcome again, everyone, and this one is going to be one of the most important videos I put out for a lot of you. Any of you that are hoping,
do I need to get into Photoshop? Please tell me no.
I'm going to break your hearts right now. I'm going to say, yes, you need to get into Photoshop. You need to learn layers and masking. It is the most powerful tool that exists in any of the photo processing software available to us. It will transform your everything, your world. The world of photography is going to change when you learn layers and masking. I can't overstate enough the importance of this technique and how many just endless applications there are for this. It's really not as difficult as it sounds, but it's an intimidating platform, and I understand that it takes a little bit to get into it to understand what you're doing. So we're going to go through with the most basic but most important feature today. Meditate if you need to. Deep breathing, or have a cup of coffee if you're like me. Whatever it takes to get you focused. Do that first, and then let's get into this. So there's two ways that we can get started, and I'm going to show you both because you need to know both. But before I do, I just want to remind you all to follow along. To get the most out of this, you'll want to use the photos I'm using. That's going to make it a lot easier to follow, and that is available in the show description. So go ahead and pause this, make sure you've downloaded those, and have Photoshop open so you can bounce back and forth between the videos. So with that done, the first thing you want to do to get started in Photoshop is hit the open button and locate your files. So I've put these ones in a folder somewhere called You'll Be a Photoshop Dragon in No Time. And in there I've got my two files. I'm going to select them both and I'm going to hit open. And that's the first way to get started in Photoshop. You can see that it's opened them in two separate windows here. I need to get those both in one place. So all I have to do is use the mover tool and move it, literally just click and drag into the window.jpg, and while holding the shift key I'm going to release. So again, what I did was I clicked anywhere on the photo from here, I dragged into the other layer, and then I held the shift key and released. And you can see it did it twice there, so I'm going to delete that second one. What I have is layer 1 and the background layer. So the first thing I'd want to do, I never work with background layers, just ever. So with that layer selected, I'm going to hit Command J, it's going to duplicate it, and let's go ahead and rename these for the sake of the exercise. I'm going to call this Waterfall, and I'm going to call this one Window. And by the way, I renamed them by just double clicking where the name is. That's all you have to do is just double click there. Oops, I don't know what I did. Just double click in the text and you can rename them anything you want. And I'll turn the background layer off. So you can see basically if these were 4x6 photos, the waterfall 4x6 would be the top of my stack. So I wouldn't be able to see what was underneath that photo. But if I threw it away, I could then see what was next in the stack, and it's the window. So think of these as if they're actual physical layers. One is on top of the other, and as long as that one is on top, you can't see the one below it. With that in mind, I'm going to put the window layer on top, and I can do that by just clicking and dragging it above to rearrange the layers. So now my window photo is the top, and underneath that is a photo of a waterfall. So that's the first way to get started. The other way, and the easier way, is in Lightroom. If your files are in the same location, which they are here, all you have to do is select them both, holding the Command key, select two photos. Now, if you had a ton, you could do this with as many as you wanted. You could do 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you wanted. But select the two for this exercise. Right-click either one of them, go Edit In, and go Open as Layers in Photoshop. And what that's going to do is it's automatically going to organize it the way that we want it. We have Waterfall and Window, which was the name of the files, and I can just click and drag to rearrange. So that's the easier way if they're already in Lightroom, but I wanted to show you both. So let's go ahead and proceed from here. It really wouldn't matter which one we started with, but there's no point in taking you through both. This one I have the extra background layer, which I could honestly just delete, and it would be the exact same starting point. So our objective today is to just learn and understand layers and masking. There's going to be a billion applications, but I'm going to show you a very cool, easy one today. And the reason I chose this photo is because a window makes for a very nice introduction to layers and masking. So what I have here is a photo where we're looking out a window at a lighthouse, and it's beautiful. But let's say I wanted to use this window frame and have us looking out at something different, say a waterfall. What I had to do is use layers and masking. First thing, I'm going to go over a couple quick things in Photoshop since a lot of you are probably very new to this. These eyeballs just turn off the layer visibility or turn it on. So if I have no visibility on any layers, I just have a transparent nothing. If I have just the window on, then I can see the window. If I have just the waterfall on, I can see that. But this just turns these layers on and off. The first thing I want to do is add a layer mask. So we do that by coming down here to this little box with a hole in it, and we click Add Layer Mask. And we now have a white box that has appeared next to it. That is our layer mask. Think of the white as a white wall. I always like that. White wall makes it easy. And the way that we are going to reveal the layer underneath is by adding a window. So how do we do that? We use the brush tool. So click brush, and you have black and white down here. As long as you have your mask selected, it will always be black and white. You can alternate with which color you're painting with by just clicking these arrows back and forth. So that's pretty easy, but something you'll definitely want to know. So the way to think of this is black is a window, white is a wall. Anywhere I paint black, it has now revealed the layer underneath. Now I can just hit Command Z and always undo. That's a good thing to know, Command Z. And I can change the size of this brush a couple ways. I can come up here to the brush tools and click the drop down arrow. Up here and click the drop down arrow, and I can change the size. I can change the hardness, which is like the feather. It's whether or not it's going to be a very hard line change or whether it will be a soft gradual one. So that's a hard line change. And I'm going to shrink this using the bracket keys as well. So you can change the size of your brush quickly by using the bracket keys to go up and down. And I'm going to now show you what it looks like at 0 hardness. So you can see it's a lot more feathered. The other one was hard lined. This one was feathered. So that's what your hardness is. I usually have it at around 0 to 25 to be honest, and that's going to be fine for now. Now the problem with trying to paint, let's say that I just did this freehand and tried to get the layer underneath to show through. It's going to work, but it's going to be real sloppy because there's a bunch of spots where it's bleeding over into the rest of our window frame. We want a sharp, tight window frame. But just for an example's sake, if you just paint black, anywhere we paint black, we are revealing the layer beneath. We've created a window to the layer below. So if I turn that layer off, if I turn the waterfall layer off, you can see where we've drawn a window. Essentially, that's all we're doing, and everywhere we're painting here, we're going to reveal anything underneath that layer. I hope that makes sense. It's going to make sense when you're doing it more than if you're just listening and not following along yourself. So paint black onto the white wall, and you are creating a window to whatever layer is underneath. The reason this is appearing as a transparent layer is because we've turned off our waterfall layer here. If we turn that on, then it shows through. All right, I'm going to go ahead and right-click the layer mask. I'm going to hit Delete Layer Mask, and I'm going to start over again. So again, back from scratch, add layer mask, and now we have an all white wall. What I'm going to do to make sure I don't paint outside those lines and have all that bleed through that wasn't very nice is I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool. Now there's a lot of ways to do this, and unfortunately this is going to be just a very simple, quick, easy demonstration today. The rectangular marquee tool won't always work. Sometimes you'll have to use more sophisticated selection tools, but in this case it will work very well because we have a rectangle. So with that tool selected, I'm just going to find the corner, and I'm going to create a rectangle in the frame. I think I got that all right. I might have missed a little bit. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did. So I'm going to go a little bit wider. And again, I'd probably want to use a more elegant tool in most situations, but this will work fine for now. What that selection tool does is it prevents us from painting outside those lines. So now if I go to my brush, I'm going to make it really, really big so it doesn't take me long. And I'm just going to brush through. And I'm going to make sure that everything in there is brushed through. So now again, if I turn off my waterfall layer, you can see that I have basically created a window in the window to reveal whatever is underneath. So hit Command and D to deselect, and look at that, we're done. Let's say we want to move this photo around. We can go back to the mover tool, and we can just click and drag to move how that photo appears in our window. That's pretty cool, right? And I feel like this is a pretty easy way of learning layers and masking. So I'm going to show you one other example of, well, it's not really an example. I'm just going to kind of try to drive this point in a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is File, Open. I'm going to open a second photo, and I'm going to have something else underneath to show through the window. Let's go to my desktop and just find a random photo here. How about this? Let's go with the surfer here. So it's going to open way off to the side. If you recall, we use our mover tool. We click it, we drag it over to our working space, and then while holding Shift, I'm going to release it. And what's happened here, if I turn both of these off, is this particular layer is a lot bigger. So if I drag around, this photo is much larger than the other photo. So what I'm going to have to do is Command T to transform it. I'm going to hit Command minus a couple times to zoom out. So Command plus, Command minus zooms in and out. And then while holding the Shift key, I'm just going to drag this down. Now this is probably more than you need to know, but you'll have seen it in action because it came up. I'm just making it the same size. So there we go. I've transformed it so it's the same size. I'm going to hit the checkbox so it applies the transformation, and now Command plus to zoom back in until we have filled up our space. So if I turn my window layer back on now, you can see that we are looking at layer 1, which is the surfer. And I'm going to drag this around, and you can basically see that because this is my top layer, but I have a window, anything that is underneath this, let's say I turn the waterfall back on, we can't see the waterfall. Why is that? It's because the layer 1 is above it. If we move the waterfall above, then we'll be seeing the waterfall. This mask is going to show whatever is underneath our top layer, no matter what that thing is. So we can just go with that one instead, and we can move this around to everything looks nice, and voila, we have ourselves a photo. Now to get it back into Lightroom, or to get it back into a format you can work in, what I usually do when I'm sure it's done is go right click, flatten image, and then I save it. However, if you wanted to keep this active so that you can always come in and change these layers and all that, you can save it as a TIFF file or a PSD file, and that will hold your layers so that when you open it back up, you still have the option to change your mask, your layers, all that stuff. If you flatten it, it's to convert it to a JPEG because you're ready to go forward with the image. Say put it on Instagram or something like that. I'll show you both those situations. File, save as, save on your computer, and it's going to default to a TIFF because there's layers, and that's fine. We could save it as window layering.tiff. And then if we open this in Photoshop, again, it's going to always have all three layers so that we can still continue to manipulate them. If we change it to format JPEG, then we'll lose all the layers. It will just appear as this image. And so the reason we don't want to do it with three layers is it'll be a much larger file space. If we're going to save it as a JPEG, right click, flatten image, and then go File, Save As, and go to JPEG this time. If you have layers, it's just a much larger file size. It won't break anything. It's just going to take up more space than is necessary. So now if I save it as window.jpg, it will be this image as we see it. How was it, guys? Did you get it? You probably think you got it, and you're going to go try to do it, and then it's not going to work, and you're going to be all confused. Guess what? That happens to all of us. Wait, I thought I was painting black, and it was, which layer is it? That happens every time. With practice, with experience, with repetition, it starts to make sense. It starts to click, and then once it does, man, you're unstoppable. But don't be frustrated if you're confused, if things feel backwards, if you aren't quite understanding. I have good news. I have made this video completely free. Watch it again. Watch as many times as you need to. There's no reason you can't rewind this and go through it again. So do what you need to do. Make sure you get this, whatever it takes. Make sure you understand this principle, and through a lot of these videos I'll show you more and more applications for how to use this and all the different ways that this can help transform your images. Before you go, I'm going to leave some videos linked around here. They show my workflow. I've said this a lot on this channel. I'm an open book with my workflows and my process. If you are interested in photography, I'm not trying to hold anything back or be competitive about this. I want you to learn, and if I can offer something on your journey, man, it's cool to be able to do that. So check those out. Leave a comment. Let me know if there's something you want to see in the next one. Praise, opportunities for improvement. I accept them both graciously, and I really like to hear from you. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.